Special council meeting to order of May 4th. I'd like to open up the public comment. Everybody's probably got public comment out, so nobody has anything to say. All right, then we'll move to the action agenda and the town manager. It's up to you.
It's really at this point to you folks. Though the caption is broad and says town manager, I think that the agenda item is discussion of how you intend to proceed with that vacancy, especially based on the workshop we just had. So at this point, you know, we were talking before in broad terms. If we're going to start moving forward and taking steps forward, we need direction from this body. And so we need to know, we being your staff, need to know how it is you intend to proceed in light of the town manager vacancy.
Are we talking about the town manager? Are we talking about accounting, or both?
Well, you have a separate agenda item for accounting and code enforcement. The first one is, in light of the town manager's vacancy, what do you wish to do?
I think we were discussing the procurement.
Right, I would like to make a recommendation that we as a council agree to ask Pete to move forward in trying to procure, one of the companies for our executive search, whether it be, like you said, I know an analysis, if my understanding is correct, we need an analysis to understand if it's even viable for us to piggyback off the Temple Terrace, or if we are gonna need to.
Yeah, so Rob, what you're discussing is having staff do the necessary research and analysis to present you with your opportunities to procure a recruitment firm. Is that generally what you're?
Yes, and also I don't know if this is even an option. This is just one of my ideas here. An accountant is very important, I think, in partnership with the town manager, especially with budget season approaching, because we normally would start budget talks, like right now, and if Pete, goes through with his resignation, if I'm speaking persuade you, as it's mentioned, but if Pete goes through with his resignation, he's gonna be gone by like the end of June, and that's crunch time for us. So I don't know if it's possible. I see all these company names. Are they only able to help recruit a city manager, or could we also ask, like in the request for bid or whatever, can we also ask them to help us find an accountant?
You can do anything you wish. My advice to you at this point is
One
just,
thing.
one thing at a time,
Okay.
so that we have clear direction. And
Okay.
if we can create efficiencies in that process, we'll certainly do so.
Okay.
I will tell you when you're talking about piggybacking as a particular option.
Oh, well,
If
no,
the last
that's
one,
right.
if the last one didn't do that, we can't do that this time. So we'll have to look at what your options and opportunities are based on what's out there
Okay.
and what's been done recently.
Okay.
But in the broader sense, I think it's not quite a motion, but the discussion point on the floor is, what is the council's will to direct us to identify procurement options for a recruitment firm?
Correct. Okay.
Correct.
That's what members of MICE have put on the floor for you.
Do we have to vote on that, or just give you a consensus?
Ultimately, I would recommend, given your current posture, that you vote on it, so we know where everybody stands and there's no misunderstanding.
Do we need to make a motion then?
Yes, I think a motion would be best. You're not really voting on anything. In this posture, consensus direction is sufficient, because you're not actually voting on, we approve this person. So consensus direction is certainly sufficient. We just want to make sure that you're very clear about what the direction is, so we don't miss expectations by delivering something to you and then different people articulating different expectations. So I would say, to quote an SNL skit, talk amongst yourselves, and then, and of course open it to the public before any kind of official.
Okay. So as I said before, I would like you to take the steps to help us procure, some type of company to help us with our executive search, and then that's where we'll start for now, right?
No, I agree. I agree.
Just point of clarification, you said executive search for a town manager.
Well, because I like how Randy warned me that if I start throwing in all these other things I'm looking for, it might affect the piggybacking, which again, if we can't piggyback, that's what's gonna save us all the time and really help us in the crunch that we're in. So if we can piggyback, maybe we can find another solution for the accountant, but if we can't, then I would like that to be included, in my opinion, but that was just what I was
Discussion
thinking.
put on the floor specifically for looking for a town manager.
Yes, well, right.
We can go position by position.
Okay.
You have a consensus.
Okay, so there's general, but before any kind of final consensus, I would suggest you go to the public.
Could I ask a question before we do that?
We work for you.
Before we go for direction from a recruitment firm, are we sure that Pete doesn't want to stay with us and continue on as a town manager before we go out looking for a town manager?
Right.
Or are we at that stage where you don't wanna do that, you would rather leave in your time?
Are you asking that question?
Yes.
It would take some serious discussion and commitment, as well as knowing that the proper tools are there. So this wouldn't be the proper time to do it. I mean, if we want to have another conversation, you know, we could definitely do that. But again, it would take a commitment of 5 people, just as, you know, very much the same posture that Rob Duncan has. If I had that and the tools to be successful, that would be a different story.
Right, well, I just thought maybe we should ask you that before we go out and try to have all of you get a recruitment firm going, if there was a chance that you wouldn't leave and everyone would agree that you would stay and we wouldn't have to go through all that, but, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question, Teresa Lights again, sorry. It doesn't cost anything for Pete to call the city manager of the other town to get copies of that, so it wouldn't cost anything, and he could do that, and then maybe you all could schedule another meeting so that you could talk about what you're talking about. I just think he can take that step, it doesn't cost anything, and then maybe you could schedule like an emergency meeting, or I don't know what format that would have to take, that would be up to, you know, Randy and Pete, I guess, but that's all.
Okay.
Well, right, yeah, it won't cost us anything, so we heard to get the ball rolling,
Anybody else in the audience have anything to say?
Just say your name and address for the record again, please.
My name's Jeffrey Planas, 4494 61st Lane North, Kansas City, Florida. I still think that, yes, you should go out and have those recruits to see if you can get another town manager, but I think that if all you can work together, I truly believe that the gentleman would stay. We wouldn't have to go through this process, and it would save the town a ton of money, and he already knows what's going on in this town. And I think that he would continue to do a good job, just like when the mayor asked him, would you be able to do that for us? And he said, absolutely. I think he's willing to work with you as long as you're in consensus to work with him to help this town. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Paul Ashley, 6412 44th Avenue. I think your time, not our time, your time could be better spent on determining why your current city manager wants to leave. I think you should take the time to determine why he wants to leave, rectify those situations, and do what it takes to have him stay. He has done, from what I can tell, a tremendous job in moving this town forward. I think you're wasting your time going to a recruitment firm. Thank you.
The only thing I would like to say, just like in my own personal opinion, is say I agree. I think we should have some conversations with Pete, because even if the conversations say don't go positive, where he decides he wants to stay, it might provide us some insight on what we need to do better as in a council in order to keep whoever we do end up with in the future, and to have a successful partnership between our new manager and this town. So again, I think talking would be a good idea, no matter the outcome.
I think that's where some of it was lost, was the one-on-one communication between us. And there was a couple times where things came up to a meeting that were kind of shocking, and, you know what I mean? I wasn't prepared for it, and
I don't know, bring code enforcement as one example, which kind of caught me for a curve, and,
Real quick, can you talk in the mic with somebody who can't hear
oh, I'm
you?
sorry. So, just code enforcement, that was one concern of mine, and it was kind of just brought to us at a meeting, but I thought if we had one-on-one conversations, to be, because we're not always gonna agree, but we can come to some point, or we can agree to disagree before we come to these meetings. And I think that that's very important, that we have a little bit more discussions on what's going on, so we're not maybe blindsided about something. So, and I don't mean it blindsided because the paperwork's presented to us ahead of time a little bit, but the fact that there's just more communication is, I think would be beneficial for all.
There you go, right, well, there you go.
Similar to what you were saying.
No, I know,
agree.
Yeah. No, I agree, community, and that was, I mean, back when we started the whole original hiring process, that was what we each emphasized as a council member, was one of the most, like, top 3 important things to us, was communication. And I would say that was on top 3 for each one of us. So I agree, yeah, so I would like I said, we made that motion for Pete, we were all in agreement, and now I would like to schedule a meeting or a workshop or whatever type of format it needs to be in, but I do think a discussion needs to be had.
Anybody else? We'll move on to the town accountant.
So just to confirm, there is consensus direction from the body for staff to investigate the procurement efforts for a manager recruiting, a firm to conduct manager recruitment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now you said we're on town accountant?
According to the agenda, I will tell you, your agenda in the broadest terms speaks of manager, then accountant, and code enforcement. You were having a discussion at your last meeting about sort of a dual track relative to the manager. Given that we're still sort of under that heading, if there was other direction you wished to give concerning those other potential recruitment efforts or solutions,
Right.
now would probably be the most appropriate time. It's sort of
Okay.
hand in hand with the manager, but that's again at your discretion.
Okay, question for you, Pete. How much participation does the accountant have in the budget?
Oh my gosh, all the way through.
Okay.
In fact, the next point, it becomes very important on June 1st, we start looking at the property appraisers, estimated taxable values, things like that, and as we start putting together the budget. And as we start putting the budget together, obviously he'll be instrumental. That was the key reason that, let's just say I really do need an accountant quickly.
Okay, so in terms of accountant, I would like to say, if we have to piggyback, we can't ask, for them to include an accountant search, but I feel like our accounting needs for this town are probably very interesting and unique. So I think maybe having, if it's possible for these companies to assist us in procuring an accountant, that should be done as well, because we can't wait for a new town manager to hire an accountant, because I think too much will fall.
So I kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
Because we can't even define the scope of work that we would go out for an accountant. That is very important to define the scope of work. I think a better resource would be to have just have a consultant for a while to do accounting. And that way we can define the scope of work later and see what we actually need to hire. I mean, once you start hiring employees, then.
Wouldn't the companies though help with that? Isn't that exactly what we would hire them for, to help us come up with the scope of work and what this town needs?
Yeah, and depending on who, that was one of the things we were talking about. That was one of the things we were talking about, potentially working with Rob Duncan in the previous workshop.
Right.
But I also think that was some of the concerns were the amount of time that we need the account for. I think that's important to discuss as well.
Well, because remember, I asked on an average work week, I asked this like a few meetings ago, on an average work week, I was told, wasn't it only like 4 to 6 hours? What was it?
16 hours a week.
16 hours a week?
Approximately.
Okay, right.
So just really quick, in fairness, an executive search firm does an executive search to help you hire a full-time employee. That's what they do.
So because our accountant might not have to be full-time.
Well, right
that's
now,
where they
you
come
do
in.
not have in your budget a
A full-
position for a full-time accountant. So you're not really setting yourself up for success if you say, here, please go get somebody to do this, when you don't really have the ability to do that.
Okay.
So you do need to replace that service, but right now that's an outsourced service. And my thought is, you give your town manager a path to start you on that procurement. You do need to procure it, but the executive search firm wouldn't be good direction only because they don't have something to search for, because you don't have a position. So if you need someone to help you with procurement, you can, as the other councilwoman said, you can hire a consultant to help you with that. Maybe your town manager can only do so many things in a week,
Well,
right? But, right, okay, so I'm just being fair, but getting help to help with the procurement is a fair ask. Asking an executive search firm to help with this one maybe isn't.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be combined.
Understood, thank you.
So, because, I mean, as far as our accounting goes, as I've stated before, that our accounting software has been outdated since 2019. So if something happens to our files or something, we're just kind of really in trouble. So that needs to be looked at, you know, so within this accounting stuff that we need, I mean, are we gonna look at updating our software? So going forward on the new budget, we have, software that's actually in date and that's usable and that can run the reports and things we need, which would take a lot of responsibility off of, you know, you don't need a CPA, you need a CPA's oversight then. So that's what I'm saying, I don't really think the scope of work's been defined. That's why I say that we need a professional to come in and help us with the budget, you know, and address our software problems. And, you know, go with that. And then it's only a short-term thing, so, you know, we're not obligating ourselves to pay, you know, a FTE that we don't have the money for.
Well, and some of that 2.5 million is for technology, that would be technology to help us advance and upgrade to help us with things like that.
You know, I mean, we've discussed this before, if we have updated software, we need to get.
Yeah,
I got a call from somebody from Pinellas Park the other day that was offering the services of somebody who was in accounting at Pinellas Park, who's retired and is looking for some part-time work. Is that something that we'd be interested in, to get something going on that?
That's what
They're a city.
I mentioned that weeks ago. I said, like, when I asked Anna, and she said, how much did we pay our account for the 16th? I know, I feel like you gave me this information, don't you?
It was, I believe, 56,000 and change, and the renegotiated contract was around $50,000, just over.
Right, so we paid 6,000 and change for only 16 hours a week. I worked for like individual businesses where they hired, you know, just individual people who were accountants. And right, we could have a full-time employee for less than that, maybe. I mean, like, who knows, right? This is all it's all speculation. I don't know what it might take or what but yes, I would say yes, Rob.
But
That's something that we might need.
that's why I kind of think it's important. I mean, I would really support to have, you know, a consultant come in and talk to everybody and highlight these things, you know, if we have outdated software. I mean, I don't use our email because it doesn't work half the time. You know, and there's things like that, but to prioritize these things that really need to get fixed.
I think, if I may, at the risk of interrupting, I think we're having a dual track conversation. And I want to help us get to solutions. My advice to you at this stage, remember, Noel, what you're suggesting sounds like a very prudent thing. You need to have a review, soup to nuts. That's a separate and distinct conversation from, in the short term, how are we ensuring that the accounting needs are met? One proposal was, hey, I just heard about a retired person who has the skill set and may have time available. One way that you can get a path forward is giving your manager authority to present to you solutions up to X value, or solutions in A, B, and C categories, meaning like either a consultant, an interlocal agreement, or retired personnel. We want to see options, and we'll have a meeting in X amount of days. And by that point, manager, you are authorized to substantively engage in discussions about this, so that when he goes to somebody, I'll tell you candidly, I had a retired municipal official or a former municipal official reach out to me and say, hey, what I've heard in these streets, if you will, is Kenneth City might have a need. I might be willing to offer. And I said, that's really cool. Thanks for reaching out. I don't know what my client wants to do right now. I can't in good conscience tell you whether you're qualified or not. I can't tell you that, great, let me put you in touch with the manager, because I don't know what my client needs and wants. And so I think a little bit of what we're asking is, which positions are you trying to fill? Give your manager, your procurement people, as your procurement officials, as Rob has described them, some guidance on what it is you want, so that we don't come, it's a few things. It's so that, one, efforts aren't expended in waste, because quite frankly, time is of the essence on whatever we decide to do. And two, so that when we propose a solution, we're meaningfully advancing your goals. We're here to make your job easier and to make your community work. And so as you're talking about macro level analysis is very different from like micro level roles. And so at the macro level, that may very well be necessary. When we're talking about mission critical services, what roles do you want this team to present you options on, and are there any options that are non-starters, so we don't present that to you? Because we can reach out to Pinellas Park and Seminole and say, hey, do you have extra personnel that we could borrow one of your accounting people for 8 hours a week through an interlocal agreement? I'm not saying they have them, I haven't asked that question at all. I'm just giving you examples of options that exist. And so what we need, what I think your manager needs is some guidance on, so that he doesn't come with what he feels is a necessity and you say, this is a waste of money. With all due respect, I think that's kind of where we ended up with the TESS contract, is he said, I think this is critical, and you said, I think we can do better. And both things may be true. But as far as moving forward, just we have guidance as the manager vacancy on the micro level accounting vacancy, or other consultants, or executive assistants. What authority does your manager have, or what do you want him to do as next steps between now and what will almost certainly be we have a meeting next week anyways, because it's your regular meeting for the month of May, I believe. So we have between now and next Wednesday, what should we be trying to prioritize as proposed solutions that you want to see?
We still have our accountant as of now.
We do.
So we don't need an accounting service till when?
Just an estimate, I think we're about maybe 37, 40 days, right around there.
So I still think we should have a consultant, because it would be, in my opinion, just like a waste of time to put a new budget in the old software and then have to convert it to the new software, a new software package that's updated. So I think that we should go with a consultant to help do the budget and to put, a new software in there for our accounting.
Did our previous accountant ever make any recommendations of a certain software he would recommend, or like, has he ever said, or do you have an idea of what the scope of services?
Remember, we were working on switching some of the software over to Excella, and that's, to be honest, for about 3 months. That was kind of the plan that got derailed at the last minute, so.
Did that happen at the meeting I wasn't at, right?
That's correct, yes.
Also, may I? Last Friday, our current accountant, Andy Tess, and I sat in a meeting with Tyler Technologies. So we do have the option of updating our current software that would cover migration and training. I'm waiting, they promised me a quote Monday and I haven't received it yet, but there are other options that we can, or you can consider.
And just remember, Bill, when we're
There's a
talking.
gentleman back there going nuts.
He's creeping up.
Walter Wolf, 5663 47th Avenue North. My question is, are you looking for a true accountant or a bookkeeper? There are differences. Everyone's saying accountant,
But accountants do a lot of different things than a bookkeeper. I mean, you're looking for AR, AP, assets, the budget part. I mean, there's so many different things. Maybe you need to decide what that job entails so you know where you look. Because there's a lot of accounting resources out there that'll do temp to hire or, temp all the time if that's where you are or you need extra one. And because it comes to about $60 an hour, you're paying that person at $50,000 for 16 hours a week.
I think that's what you were saying, when we were on.
Yeah, we need to define our scope of
Well, you don't
work.
even need a consultant. I mean, if you know the job is, which I guess you did for a little while, or someone's doing it. I mean, it depends what you're doing. If you're just doing accounts payable, accounts receivable, and you're not doing a bunch of general levy, you don't need a CPA, I'm assuming.
I do believe we do need somebody with that level. The reason why they do work with grants. True, they do that, but they're also our finance officer
Okay.
de facto.
So then, I would suggest going to another city, like you were saying, where you can maybe get it from someone that has the experience already too. And if you don't need a full time.
This is like the American.
Right, that's what I was saying. I wasn't sure as a city, all the different, I knew there was grants, because I've been in accounting and HR and payroll, and I've done all that, so.
If we went with the consulting as far as evaluation, would that be something that could be considered as far as the Pinellas Park option that you could look into as well? And that would be part of your evaluation into consulting to see what best.
That's a yes, absolutely. So, if you don't mind, only because you addressed me, so there are experts out there, thank you, there are experts out there that can provide information about various options. This isn't I need an accountant to go figure it out. No, you have certain things that need to be done that a bookkeeper can do. You have certain things you absolutely must have an accountant here doing, and you have a travesty in software right now that's really inefficient, that people are spending way too much time working, and that costs dollars. So this is one conversation that needs to be had with multiple parties so you can evaluate your options and move forward. So I didn't bring other partners in. There's a local company that provides accounting services to cities that comes with the software, and that software can do things, just like you mentioned with Excel and probably Tyler Technologies, things like also doing permitting and making permitting all online, so you're not paying somebody here 20 hours a week from a neighboring city to do manual paperwork and running, right, a part of your city. That's net negative. So it's not a simple conversation. How can we most cheaply get an accountant in here? It's who are the people that can help us, give us a path forward to where we want to be. And that's probably the direction I would recommend, is give some direction to get us on a path to being better. Because if we just try to hire somebody, that person's going to come in and do exactly what you're doing, which may not be what you want, because it's probably going to cost more than you're willing to pay.
Could that also help with payroll? So we wouldn't need a payroll company?
So yes or no, okay? So this is where it gets really hard until you have solutions on the table and understand real scope. The answer is always going to be it depends. It's a terrible answer, but it's the truth.
Hey, it's a great answer.
Right. I use it all the time, but I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot of it depends here, and I want to preface, it's possible. Right now, this town would benefit from somebody looking at all the various technology needs you have and make it part of this accounting solution. Really short time frame, right? And if it can't all be implemented in that time frame, which is more than likely, a partner that can help you get there is what you need. I'm not saying, I'm not an accounting firm. I have partners that do this stuff. I can put you in touch with the right people. If you want me to manage them, I can manage those people. But that's not what I'm here to propose. You have options, and you need to give direction on help me get to the right path, or just help me to get a body in the seat, is the first discussion you need to have. And then, how do you get there?
Because like I said, I think it's important to take the right path.
The right path. I agree.
We've constantly just, we need somebody and hired them without even defining what their scope of work is and how it actually integrates into the town and what we need. Which ultimately wastes a lot of money.
So, where do we go?
I have to laugh because we had an accountant and you had a scope of work and everyone signed that scope of work to hire the guy, so you must have known what you were looking for, or you shouldn't have been reading and signing the document that had a scope of work, and we hired someone to do that. So you must have some idea of what kind of scope of work you're looking for, you shouldn't have signed the name of the document.
I don't think he had a contract, did he?
Yes,
Oh, he did?
yes, he did, it was signed by the council, yes.
In fact, Councilmember Cummings, the contract that I brought you was pretty much the exact same contract, with just a 20.3% reduction in cost, the same scope of work, everything.
But that was a new contract, it wasn't a contract prior to that. correct?
No, it was.
It was the same one.
Substantively, it was the same.
Okay. So where are we?
Is public comment still available?
In a minute.
Okay.
Just one question. The Excel software, I know it's past, did that have an update like with the accounting side of things too? Or was that just like the permitting and that?
It does quite a bit, and it would integrate into an accounting software.
So,
And that's, I'm sorry, that's one of the reasons, I wanted Andy, he was going to be part of that transition for all
Right.
of that, including
Including the building, code enforcement, and all of that, because there's costs associated to all that.
so it would have updated pretty much all of the software.
I mean, we can obviously look at different software packages if we're restarting. In fact, Stephen Bryan from,
I mean, no, but we approved it X amount of times.
but yeah, if you so choose to, myself, on a basis, we can all come together, with other professionals, depending if we work with Rob Duncan, and evaluate different software packages and bring, recommendations to council.
I mean, but isn't that what you did last time with Excel? So you literally would just be doing it all over again?
And just looking at a couple different more packages and putting full proposals in front of you.
Okay. Right, so ultimately, you're
Hey,
gonna
Rob,
go over.
have you worked with Excel before?
I'm not an accountant.
Okay, right, so, okay.
Now, I was just curious, because I hear all this talk about how we need to upgrade our software, yet we were presented with an opportunity and we were already given all of these options and we approved like draft 1 and we approved like draft 2, and then when it came to the final,
But,
I missed a meeting and everyone says no. So it's just funny to me, we talk a big game, but like,
No,
we
but-
literally
but-
had the opportunity.
but it was software and accounting, so if we could get software that we can reduce some of the accounting costs and include that in here as a technology base, then that's where we're.
And you don't think we could have got there after things were
Well, we might
simplified
have,
with
but-
the new program?
Megan, just,
I was just
let
asking.
me just update you that before with the Excel contract, we hadn't seen the, contract until that last meeting, the one that you missed. And, we got the contract in our packet, and I read the contract, and to meet all of our things that, we were supposed to do, provide as is, and there was a lot of things that we had to do, update scripts and we didn't have the people. And so that, $53,000 probably would have at least doubled, and that's, scope creep, and that wouldn't have been a good thing for the town.
But wasn't all of that considered by Pete when originally choosing Excella to be the contractor? So chances are, if he goes back out, it's not gonna get any better, he chose that company the first time.
We were piggybacking.
Well, what I'm saying
Well, we're
is,
gonna, but that opportunity's gone, so the price is gonna be more expensive.
well, that's kind of why.
Is there no time limit for feedback?
The only other thing I was gonna say is, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh.
But that's why I'm saying that we should go ahead.
I'm sorry, with any software package, what Councilmember Noble is talking about, there is going to be a lot of integration and a lot of, remember, these are basically frameworks that have to meet and, be with the professionals like Anna and myself, the accountant, to make it work. So in my opinion, no matter what software package you use, you're really gonna get very similar issues. We're a small town with very small resources. It's gonna be hard, to a large degree, we're gonna have to learn as we go. Excella really, in my conversations with them, they were really excited about working with us, and I believe,
they would have made it work as best as possible. In fact, they were looking at a very small city, down south, Key Biscayne, or
Key Biscayne.
was it Key Biscayne? Thanks so much. Yeah, Key Biscayne, and we were going to copy a lot of what they were doing, and again, we would have to tailor our processes, you know, a little bit, but the great majority of it was there.
But that's why I keep going back to saying that if, you know, we don't have the expertise, we need to hire people for a short amount of time to make sure that anything that we get is implemented and it's implemented correctly. And like I say, for the CPA and the software, I think we should go forward with a consultant, because then we're not tying ourselves. If you hire consultants, that's their job to know, and to know how to get these things implemented, so when they bring you a quote, then that is actually the quote. You can reduce the scope creep at that point.
Well, there's also people that he has that are specialized in that stuff that can assist with the.
It can be a quote, but they can still charge you.
Sir, we appreciate it, just for order, we don't do the shouting from they'll open it back to public comment at some point.
Did we not have a town manager that did that we hired to do all of our contracts and all of that? So why now do we wanna hire consultants to do everything that we need and just spend more money? They're gonna come up with maybe the same options that we've already been given.
Cause I just think the biggest question was the account.
But also you guys talked about needing help for the integration, and that's why you wanna hire or whatever. You could've just gave Pete help with the integration the first time, versus now we have to start all over, and we're how many months behind now? Like, we keep talking, so please, like, you have the idea, and why couldn't we have done that before?
That said, we're looking for action, direction going forward. Right now, we have direction to recruit a manager, to look into options to procure a recruitment firm for a manager. There are about 1,000 things that need doing in this town right now. That's not really a secret, and we can all identify an issue spot. But I think that we could benefit from some prioritization. And so regardless of what has happened, or what we wish would have happened, or missed opportunities, or incredible opportunities on the horizon, what do you want this team to look into to present to you in the near term?
I got a question. Pete, do you think it'd be beneficial to have a consultant work with you to help you with some guidance in picking a software or doing something of that sort?
It wouldn't hurt having another team member, you know, on here, because to be quite honest, I think there's been some loss of trust between the dais and this side of the dais. So I think that may be one tactic to get us closer to that.
Or just even help in general, right, to put something together.
And just one side note too, you know, we talked about revenues, you know, this software packages that we're talking about, you know, my dream was to get those very quickly for several reasons. First of all, they could be revenue generators at the same time as putting that together. Help with getting, you know, business tax receipts, what currents are, and bringing that so that, you know, very much like you said, we're not putting something in old software and then having to input it into a new software. So these are, you know, definitely related. And so again, you know, I want to get revenue in. Also just the fact that, you know, when we look at building permits and you can only come in 4 hours a day and you have to pay, you know, in a certain way, you know, these things, you know, no matter be it Tyler Technologies, Excel, the 100 other different acronyms, that, you know, they would all do what we need them to do, and again, hopefully generate some revenue in the process and make it more convenient for, you know, our residents, our users.
But I think we should have somebody come in and help Pete with the budget, for sure. And again, the software kind of goes hand in hand with the budget. And regardless of anything that was brought before us, we have never discussed budgeting software. They kind of go hand in hand. Otherwise, we're going to generate many more hours of work if we go and have a budget done, and then we go, oh, well, let's update our software. Then you have to convert all of that information.
could some of that help also be the evaluation of an accountant as far as, you know, the time needed or the services provided, and can that be incorporated into the software as a help to you?
Yeah, but just to reiterate a common theme that you're hearing from myself and my colleagues to the left of me, we're talking about a global situation with getting an accountant, talking about, you know, business tax receipts, building, code enforcement, they're all, you know, as you said, they very are related. Oh my gosh, though, you know, you're basically trying to tackle a mountain at one time, and in this city, that's not gonna happen. In a sense, we have to look at something expandable and, you know, one step in front of the other.
Rob, do you do this?
My firm does not do accounting services. So a firm like mine, what we would do is assist your town manager with understanding exactly where you are, what your options are, and help facilitate through the process. And again, back to, it doesn't have to be my firm. You know, what I am hearing, professional advice here, is you're already asking to do something that's gonna take a considerable amount of time. Considering what's going on here, the walk-ins and other things, running daily operations, just with that one task, that's too much to do between now and next meeting, just the one. So getting somewhere forward between now and the next meeting on the other one, without any help, is going to be hard. And I'm not saying you have to do something tonight. What I'm saying is you just have to be realistic with what one person can do. And that's the challenge. So yes, another resource, or another 2 resources, or 3 resources to help out as you pick, these are the things that need to be due, so he can orchestrate, that would help.
So it's a resource basically to help Pete, so we have.
I think he only has a certain amount of time in the week.
Right.
And there's conversations that need to be had, and you already have one specific thing he has to work on, which is a top priority. You're gonna need to come up with ways to do the other things, or just put them together.
The consistent theme you're hearing from at least the 3 of us is, while you are the policy-making body, you're not in a position to be making policy right now. We need to know what personnel you're authorizing to exist to move forward. So we have recruit a manager. Do you want accounting personnel? Understanding that or bookkeeping personnel, whatever, or some kind of financial personnel. Understanding that there's bigger issues those people are gonna have to tackle, and FTE is not that solution right now, perhaps. Do you want executive level, whether it's Imagine That or not? One of the other discussions during the workshop was executive level assistance, what Imagine That was originally brought in to do last year, before Lynn gave her notice. What personnel needs? That's really the targeted question we're trying to ask, and I think we've been trying to be perhaps too diplomatic. In order to help you get somewhere at 9:15 at night, we want to know from you, what seats do you want us to fill, or what general work can we do to get a team together? What team do you want here right now so we can achieve so those people and we can achieve those goals for you? That's really the targeted question. I think all of the feedback has been very valid about your software platforms, your capital improvement planning, your comprehensive planning. All of those are also very legitimate needs of this community. But in the here and now, on a Wednesday night where your manager's given notice, your accountant has given notice, your attorney's told you you're going to need an RFP, what personnel for the here and now do you want us to assemble to get your budget together, to do all the other visioning that needs doing? That's the targeted question being asked.
All 3 of you. There we go. We need y'all.
Well, sure, but as far as whatever support, Frank, if right now all we're going to do between now, if we adjourn in this moment, the direction your staff has is find us a managing recruitment firm. End of discussion. And I will come back with you with, you could use Colin Benzinger or whomever through this piggyback, you could do this other thing, here's an invitation to bid or RFQs, and that's all we're doing between now and then based on the direction. You are our client, but our client is a collective. So we need, while I appreciate one person feeling very strongly about something else and another person feeling strongly, we need collective decision making. So what collectively, if there's anything else you want us to do, what collectively do you want us to do?
We need an accountant.
Well, and we need it, Pete.
We need the budget now.
There's too much stuff for Pete to do in a short time, so I think he needs help to see, we've got a lot. We've got CPA, we've got, or if we need a CPA, or if we need a bookkeeper, if we need software, if we need, Pete can't do all that, and we need a direction to be going in the right direction, so I think a lot more could get done with assistance. It's definitely an overload for Pete to try to put it all together, but I do think if he had support, I think as a team effort, I think it would be very beneficial to try to get us in the right direction.
Well, Rob, you said you don't do accounting, but you do accounting setup, right?
Well, Pete could use them in different avenues to help out, and maybe we could do procurement through.
I feel, if we were to hire, imagine that, I feel like, from my understanding of your services, they would be able to help us come up with our scope of services that we keep, so when we go out to hire, we know what we're looking for in terms of an accountant. Is that correct? Okay, right? I feel like that's what he would help with, define the scope of services, and then, again, Pete, unless we have these discussions and Pete decides to stay, he will be gone at the end of June. The budget is due October. We have no accountant, we'll have no town manager. Even if we acquire one of these companies, the chances of them finding someone for us and putting them in place before Pete leaves is probably like, I don't know, 2%. Like, slim to none. So, we will definitely need someone to prepare the budget and to help with, to give him some, yes. But again, that will cost X amount of money. So isn't it, as we said before, we gave you the direction before to go out to find an executive search company. Wouldn't it be the same thing now? Just like last time, you said you couldn't help us prepare for whatever, because then you couldn't apply for it. So
do we have targeted question? Is it the will of this body that we, meaning staff, identify resources for executive level assistance for the town manager in this transition period?
yes.
To do the budget, yes.
That's that.
Well, right, that would be another
All
conversation
executive
we
level
have.
functions.
Yeah.
It's like, and we can narrow that, but identifying temporary executive level assistance for the manager, is that the general direction of this body at this stage?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would suggest you open it to public comment. There's some people who have very patiently waited for a chance to speak on this.
Ellen Dowd, 4726 58th Street North. Thank you, Councilwoman Roberts and Zamitis and Councilman, I guess your Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Cummings, for asking direct questions to your town manager. He is the person that is gonna tell you what he needs to get us out of these immediate problems that we have facing us. What goes on down the road, we'll do the best that we can. But he's the one that knows what kind of help he wants, what kind of help he needs, so that Kansas City doesn't wonder. If you can't understand this, then you don't deserve to be sitting on the council. Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Height, 6514 43rd Avenue. I'm gonna tickle my throat. First thing I wanna say is, it's been a week since Pete has given his resignation, okay? And it's taken to now to be able to say, okay, we're gonna sit down with Pete and see what we can do. A whole week has gone by. That should have been the very next day, that should have been discussed. The very next day, and said, Pete, what can we do for you to keep you here? You know, I'm just seeing it from the side view here. You know, he's done such a good job, and to have to lose somebody that is doing some progress in this town, okay, with the amount of time that he's been here. And just to throw that away and to hire other people and more money. I mean, this town needs so much more to put money into than to hire consultants and what have you. And we have a town manager here that's willing to sit down and talk. Well, the question needs to say, Pete, what do you need? Okay? Because I know me working 16 years at places, one person isn't enough. When they throw jobs at you, at one after another, you know what? It's time to hang it up. Because you get tired of hearing it. No, you can't give me the help, I'm see ya. And I just look at it this way. You all need to sit down with him and have this conversation. And I can guarantee, I can't say guarantee, because I can't say what you're thinking. But I can almost say, he'll stay. And that's gonna save us a lot of money. And let him find the people that he needs to help him. And it's gonna save us a lot of money in the long run. That's all I can say. And Pete, you did a good job.
Anybody else?
So we have a consensus to get Pete the executive, what you call that?
Executive level assistance,
Thank
and
you.
we can craft and fine tune that, but at least explore what executive level assistance options exist between now and our meeting next week. That's no small feat unto itself, but, we will do what we can to have solutions, or at least explain what steps have been taken and what we're waiting to hear back from. I can tell you the last time that we went through this, when Lynn Ladner was here and bringing in Imagine That, and she and I made phone calls. I spoke to Colin Benzinger himself, but it took me about 5 days because he had a surgery and he had a flight, and so we might not get all the information that we want to have by next Wednesday, but meaningful steps will be taken to identify what executive level assistance options exist between now and then. And so at this stage in the meeting, we have direction on finding a manager recruitment firm and executive level assistance, and based on the discussion that would include financial record keeping as broadly as I'm going to state it, because there's a lot of discussion and debate over if it's an accountant or a bookkeeper. We don't have the luxury of getting that far into the weeds tonight. We just need to identify somebody who can assist in financial services and what other executive level, and that gives your manager some leeway between now and next week to say, here's what I need, and here's what the town's going to need in my absence, and this is what I'm proposing. And then you folks can decide if that's a responsible allocation of funds or prioritization, all of that. I think that gets you over the hump of what you've been discussing for the last 3 hours.
Yes.
There are still more items on your agenda. But we have our direction, we have consensus direction as to the first item and the second item and the sort of A and B subparts that are in there.
Can you table 3?
Well, what are we talking about? That's kind of like something that's was hired by our town manager, was dismissed by our town manager, and now we have nothing.
Well, and that's the role of your town manager, is to hire personnel and fire personnel.
Well, I agree.
So that's not that abnormal thought. The third item on the agenda is code enforcement, as a heading. Well, just for the benefit of, not everybody might not be reading from the same sheet of music. You kind of led into it, but it wasn't introduced. I just want to make sure. The third item on the agenda reads code enforcement with Exhibit 4 being a job description. And so one member has suggested talking about it another night. Another member has started to discuss it. You guys do run your show.
Isn't 2 items for Pete to be able to have for us, but in a week, a sufficient amount of stuff to go through without adding a third item for?
Are you talking about code enforcement? Not doing code enforcement?
I'm not talking about it tonight, because we already have 2 other things that he has to have prepared for us for next Wednesday, so.
We can give a direction, doesn't mean you have to have it prepared right away, we can do a direction, it's gonna take time. I think it's important to talk about it, we don't have anything. So,
Yeah, no, we need code enforcement now.
In as much as it's on the agenda, I would recommend if your manager wishes to, ordinarily when agenda items happen, typically there's a staff person whose job it is to introduce the matter, to sort of put the metes and bounds on the discussion, especially when it's as broadly stated as code enforcement. So before there's any other discussion on it, I think Manager Cavalli would be appropriate for you to say what was your intention of putting this on the agenda for their, what your either direction, ask, or information you wanted them to digest is, and then I think a discussion would be very worthwhile.
Yeah, this is just honestly a holdover, just continuing on from the meeting that was canceled last week, the second part of the meeting. But my honest personal opinion, we're trying to do too many things at one time. Your head gets clouded. You gave me 2 serious tasks, actually more than 2, when you really look at the executive level assistance. It's my humble recommendation to you all, let's table this third one for next week. I mean, we're talking 7 days. What's happening with code enforcement? Myself, Michael Vino, and his staff are handling code enforcement to a large degree at the moment. Again, is it important? I agree with you, it's very important. But that's going to take, some serious discussion, let's actually look at how much the different cost options, options would cost. What are some of the benefits? Again, this is a huge thing. So again, it's my humble recommendation that we table that until next week.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Like I said, I'll second, but before, I just really would like, I would like a meeting or some type of talking format to sit down with Pete. 1, to discuss his needs. That way, if we hire someone for help, we have a general idea of what he needs. And then 2, to maybe talk out some kinks or to learn what we could do better for the future.
Attorney,
So Manager Cavalli is asking me, in as much as there's been a discussion about this body having discussions with the manager, there is nothing in the law that prevents each of you individually from speaking with Pete at any time, so long as you do not then serve as a proxy, meaning go back and say, hey, Megan has her discussion, and then goes to the mayor and says, this is what Pete told me, what do you think? That's the part that can't happen, but you can all individually sit with him and say, what's up, at any given time. What's up, what do you need, what's the problem, what can we do, is there a relationship to be salvaged? Any discussion you want to have, one-on-one, you folks can have that with Manager Cavalli. Candidly, I think based on the kind of conversation you're talking about, you're probably better to have that one-on-one, so each of you can be candid and earnest with each other and perhaps address any issues on an individual basis. If he has that will, you're all adults, do as you wish. But as from a legal standpoint, if you're looking for those discussions, you can have them individually. Alternatively, you can have that publicly, uncomfortable though it may be. And that's ultimately, again, at the discretion of the people involved.
Okay, I had a first and I had a second, is that correct?
That was your recommendation. Yes, I think, but again, there's nothing decided, we can do it.
Very well.
I just wanted the residents to be around here. Okay, Ken and Pete, are you a quick question? So, I bought a hot dog cart. Yes, so I'm ready to open up this meeting.